A bite-sized pumpkin cookie with around 1 gram of net carbs will satisfy your fall indulgence for all things pumpkin. I used a special ingredient to amp up their comfort flavor, and it gives these cookies a special cake-like texture. These keto pumpkin whoopie pies will have you screaming, "Whoopie! Whoopie!" I have 2 different ways of making these, so you can choose which one depending on what you have in your pantry. And one recipe is just slightly better than the other. So let's get to baking before pumpkin season is almost over or you get tired of pumpkin. Let's start with our dry ingredients. Add 1 1/4 cup of almond flour and 2 tablespoons of oat fiber. And yes, I said oat fiber, not oat flour or oatmeal. Oat fiber is actually an insoluble fiber that comes from the husks from oats, so it's 0 carbs. Then you'll add 1 teaspoon of pumpkin pie spice, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, which we want to use in place of baking powder in this recipe because these cookies don't really need to rise that much. They need to lay flat because you want to let your whoopie pie stay flat. And then 3/4 teaspoon of salt. Mix until it's combined. And I know you're probably annoyed with the fact that I'm recommending another ingredient that you have to purchase and store in your pantry, but oat fiber helps to add a slight oat flavor to these cookies and it improves the texture. So it's more cake-like without adding all the extra carbs. We set that bowl aside, and to a large bowl, you're gonna crack in 2 eggs and 1/2 cup of brown sugar substitute. And I'll have some brands listed down below for you. Then whip this over medium-high speed on your mixer until it gets fluffy and pale. And this will take around 3 minutes, so don't get impatient. You have to have your batter this fluffy texture. Another way you can do this recipe is if you didn't want to use oat fiber, you could use lupin flour. It's a keto flour that's also very low in carbs, and it comes from a lupin bean, which is a legume. Using lupin flour, it also helps to bulk up your recipe without adding too much almond flour, and thus you can get away with adding less carbs to your recipe. So if you wanted to try this, I would use 3/4 cup of almond flour and 1/4 cup of lupin flour. This would actually bring your carbs per cookie down to 1.1 grams of net carbs instead of 1.4. Not that it really makes a difference if you're just having a couple of cookies, but it would make a difference if you have like 7 or 20. Once your batter looks like that, we're gonna add in 1 cup of canned pumpkin puree. Not the pumpkin pie filling, don't get that because that has sugar in it. And then 6 tablespoons of melted unsalted butter. Mix that together until it's combined, and then we're gonna slowly sprinkle in the dry ingredients. And you only wanna mix this until it's just combined. Don't overmix, overmixing is bad. It's best to use a piping bag to pipe these onto your parchment lined tray. That way you can ensure that all your cookies are the same size. And you'll need to pipe around a tablespoon amount. And if you're wondering why these are called whoopie pies, no, it's not what you think. Get your mind out of the gutter. It's actually very innocent. A brief Google search told me that these were first popular with the Amish. When the kids found these in their lunch boxes, they would shout out, "Whoopie!" So old-fashioned. Then we bake these at 350 degrees for 12 minutes. And when they come out of the oven, they're gonna be soft, so you wanna let them cool on the baking tray for a couple of minutes before transferring them to a wire rack, and then let them cool completely. They will firm up as they cool. For the filling, we're making a cream cheese filling made up of 4 tablespoons of softened butter and 1/2 cup of powdered sugar-free sweetener. Mix that up until it comes together and it gets fluffy and smooth. And this is gonna take a few minutes. Then add 4 ounces of softened cream cheese and then mix that up until it's fluffy. To fill your cookies, you can add it to a piping bag again, or you can spread it on. But you wanna try and find 2 cookies that are around the same size, and then pipe your filling onto the cookie, or spread around 1/2 tablespoon with a knife. I found my filling to be a little bit thick, so if you find that that happens for you, just add a couple teaspoons of heavy cream and that should help to thin out your filling. One last step just to knock these really out of the park is to add a special chocolate drizzle. And this option is well worth it. I'm using 3 tablespoons of sugar-free chocolate chips, 1 teaspoon of coconut oil, and for the ultimate fall flavor indulgence, I'm adding a 1/4 scoop of Cacao Bliss by Earth Echo, who is my sponsor for today's video. Cacao Bliss isn't just a raw cacao powder, it's filled with superfoods like turmeric and cinnamon, which help to give this drizzle an incredible flavor and add some nutrition. Melt the chocolate and the coconut oil first, and then add the Cacao Bliss. It really dissolves nicely in this, and I love that I'm getting some earthy earthy fall flavors added to this topping, along with a boost of nutrition for inflammation and gut health. If you want to try Cacao Bliss, go to earthechofoods.com/KetoFocus and use my code KetoFocus to get 15% off of your order. I'll have all the information listed down below in the description box as well. Once that drizzle is added, it'll be hard to have just one, but remember, there's only 1.4 grams of net carbs per cookie, so you can safely enjoy more. And if you haven't gotten enough pumpkin yet, well then you need to check out some of my other recipes like keto muffins or keto pumpkin pie. Just click right here to watch.